to you. I'm super excited about what we're talking about today because I think people get stuck in sort of traps of this. And so I want to help free you from some potential traps that people, I mean, it's so often that I see it that it's almost predictable, right? And so like if I can help free you guys from these traps, it allows you to be more in a growth mindset. It allows you to be more confident about your growth rather than always looking around to see like who else is doing something, and letting that paralyze and stop you, because quite frankly, that's not what the world needs. The world doesn't need you stuck in the mud with the way that you're going to be serving it. The world needs you to actually be able to move forward, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about just real quick today. This isn't going to be a long one by any means. So what is competition, right? What is, hey Darlene, I see you. Oh, coming home from Cozumel today, I see. Oh, man. I hope that was fun. It looked like you were having a blast. But so what is competition? I think competition, this is all in my opinion, right? You can look up the definition of, I almost said constipation. You can look up the definition of competition in the dictionary if you want to. To know the actual definition, right? But what does it mean is really what I'm getting at here. And so competition to me means a couple of different things, right? The very first thing that I think whenever anybody starts talking about competition in the marketplace is that you're not niched down enough, right? That your bat signal, as I call it anyway, your niche, who you serve, how you serve them, isn't specific enough. Because when you look at competition, you're like, well, they're all doing the same thing that I'm doing. Well, a lot of people don't niche down enough. And so if there's layers of niching, right? Specifically, like, let's just talk about the health and wellness sector, okay? A lot of people in the health wellness sector will just say, I want to help people with their health and wellness. I want to help people feel better. I want to help people, okay, that would be top layer. I want to help people feel better, okay? That's what a lot of people stop with, and they say, that's my bat signal. And I'm like, no, the heck it's not. Keep going, right? And then the next level could be, like a more specific version of that, could be, okay, well, I help people understand alternative methods to feeling better, okay? Well, it's a little bit more niche than I help people feel better. Well, I help people feel better with alternative methods than what they're used to, right? Okay, well, that's another layer, but still not niche and still not actually helpful, right? And so then the next layer down would be like, okay, well, I help people with maybe autoimmune issues or disorders or whatever, right? That would be another level down, still not specific enough. So you're going to see up here at the top level, that's going to be massive competition because that's what everybody says. But that also makes it red ocean, guys. And so in it being red ocean, everybody's talking about the same thing up here. None of what their messaging is actually hits somebody between the eyes and is like, oh, they get me, right? Like they know what I'm going through. Like they mentioned a thing in their post today that I literally had last night. So like what you want is somebody to be like, do you have cameras in my house? You want them to think you're stalking them. Is that weird? You want them to feel like you're stalking them, where you get them so much that it feels like you're watching them. Okay? So creepy. But I help people feel better doesn't do that, right? I help people feel better with alternative methods doesn't do that, okay? There's high competition here, but let me also say, in spaces of high competition, there is not high success. Hear that. You might be like, well, this is what everybody else is talking about. This must be what I'm supposed to do. No, they're not successful, guys. They can't be. From a business strategist standpoint, they can't be. The messaging doesn't work like that. People's brains don't work like that. So even if that's what you see them doing, if they're actually successful, and for you to know that, you'd have to look at their books, right? But if they're actually successful, they're doing something else. They're doing something else that does get very specific, that you just don't see. They've got to be. There's no way. And so there's the general, there's the next layer down, more specific, and then you go autoimmune. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Now, like the next layer down, let's just keep funneling in and funneling in and funneling in. Next layer down, okay, what kind of autoimmune, right? Is it lupus? I help people with lupus do X, Y, and Z. Or I explain how I was able to X, Y, and Z with my lupus, or with the lupus that I had. We don't claim lupus, but with the lupus that I had, right? Use an article in front of the lupus. But do we understand what I'm saying? When you get further down into this, like say the lupus example, you can even go further and further down than that, okay? But when you get to that point, you're getting into blue ocean. There isn't competition. And if there is competition, like other people doing exactly what you're doing, what I would actually do is I would look further into what they're doing and see if maybe what they're doing runs parallel to what you're doing. Because inside of somebody with a real good growth mindset is going to look at perceived competition, and they're going to look at it and see if inside of that perceived competition there isn't a golden collaboration opportunity. Okay? So the people that are scared of competition are afraid of failing. They think they can't actually do this. There's too many people out there. The market is saturated. These are the things you hear them say, right? I can't do this. There's too many other people doing this, and da-da-da-da-da. Okay, what that says to me is you're not specific enough. You're not niche enough. And also, because you're not niche enough, you don't even have the ability to be able to look at potential competition to see if there's golden collaboration in that. Because whenever there's golden collaboration inside of that, you have now expanded your audience times X. I can't even say a number because you don't know. It's circles inside of circles inside of circles inside of circles that you get expanded to whenever you start to collaborate with people instead of seeing everybody as a competitor. Okay, that's an important distinction to make in the mindset of competition, right? The other weird thing that happens with competition, and it'll happen to you, it's happened to me, it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody. And it's an accidental thing, I think, on the person who does its part. And then they accidentally stub their toe, and then there's kind of nowhere to go from there. So let's talk about that. Sometimes, whenever a student learns from a mentor, they respect the mentor so much and they love the mentor's business model so much that they accidentally start doing it, right? They start actually, instead of doing their own lane, instead of doing their thing, they start doing that instead. Which, you guys, if it's not what you're called to, if it's not really your bat signal, it's not going to work for you. But that's an aside. It doesn't even matter. I want to say what accidentally happens in that, okay? I don't believe anybody does this maliciously. I don't think that anybody even thinks that they're doing it when they do it. I think it's a, what's the saying? It's basically like mimicry is the highest form of compliment. It's not mimicry, but basically when people are doing what you're doing, it's the highest form of compliment. And they're basically just, they see what you do and they're like, oh, I want to do exactly that thing because I love that. I love how she does it. I love how da-da-da-da-da, right? And this is, your students are going to do this with you also, okay? So I think we have to be keen to understand what's actually happening here psychologically, because imitation, thank you, imitation. I'm like, mimicry, I don't know. Thank you, Denise, imitation. Highest form of flattery, that's what it is. And so I love that you guys are here with me for the win. But what they do is they love what the mentor is doing so much that they accidentally start trying to do it as well. But then what they do is they accidentally put themselves in the position of being a competitor of the mentor without the mentor even knowing it, right? It's not like the mentor is looking out at, who's competing with, like nobody, most of the time people don't actually do that. But they put themselves in the position and in the mindset, they like work themselves into this where they are now a competitor with the person they respect. And so now it's an us versus them with a person that they respect. Does that make sense? And now you can't even, if you continue that path, it's like it's not fixable. You can't fix that. Does that make sense? So that becomes, it's like you worked yourself into competition on accident, whereas realistically, if you had stayed like in your niche, in your bat signal, in what you do, then you don't even have to worry about that. You can stay with this mentor forever and ever, amen, and they're going to work with you and they're going to help you and blah, blah, blah. But when you start to pit yourself up against them as competition, you created a wall, okay? I've never seen the mentor actually create the wall. The wall was created as that happened. And so this hasn't happened recently by any means to me, but I know that it happens all the time. And so I want you guys to think about it, and I want you to even think about it with your students and things like that, to just like, to try to always, I don't know, to give grace in the beginning steps of that, if you start to see it happening, and then maybe even call out the elephant, right? And say like, hey, it looks like, ba, ba, ba. I know that's what we've done with people that have done it with us before. It didn't work. But I mean, it's good to be able to still address it, because I think that's the responsible thing to do. But I just wanted to be able to cover that. I just wanted to be able to cover it. But competition mindset, let's talk about it again real quick, and then let's just break down the video. Competition mindset typically means that you're not niched down enough, okay? That your bat signal, that who you're serving is not niched down enough, because if you're niche, there's not really a ton of competition in that space, right? And then if you see someone who might potentially be competition, I would look further at what they have and see if it's actually something that you can join arms or link arms with them, to be able to say like, hey, let's work together. Can you serve my people in X amount of way? And I can serve your people in blah, 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 right? JV is one of the best. It's my favorite thing to do so far as a business growth strategy, which is joint venture, which is where you find other people. I call them super friends. It's where you find other people that do things for your folks that you don't do for them, but that they need, right? It's one of my favorite things to do. And so the growth, the organic growth that comes from that is that they share with their people what you're doing. You share with your people what they're doing. Your people and their people are really the winners, because they get to know of everybody and they get to move faster in the general direction that you help them move in. Does that make sense? Because you can't be everything to everyone. And you shouldn't. That's what niche is all about, right? So anyway, what is competition? I don't think it's a real thing. Because also, and another thing, let me just say this. If you see somebody as a competitor, they would have to be equal parts competitor. They would have to be your age. They would have to be your sex. They would have to have the same background as you. They would have to have gone through the same circumstances as you. They would have had to have made the same choices you have made in life to be true competition. That doesn't exist. Even if you do something and somebody else does something, People are going to come to you based on who you are, your flavor, your experiences, what has molded you to this point right now, and what continues to mold you over anybody else. Okay? Your people are going to come to you regardless. Competition doesn't really exist. I love you guys. Adios. Bye-bye.